Hi clarinets. If you found this video from the other video, that's great. What I want to do in this video is just remind ourselves how to put the instrument together, how to hold it, and how to produce our very first note. Once we've mastered that, we can go back to the other video and we'll play through number 2 through 11 in the book. So here is our quick refresher course on how to put our instrument together if it's been a while, how to hold it correctly, and how to produce an embouchure and our very first note. So here we go, we're sitting in our chair. I'm going to keep my feet flat on the floor. That way when I rest my instrument on my lap, it's got a nice secure platform for it to rest on. Okay? We don't want to do this on some unstable surface. So here it is on our lap. We've got the latches facing me, the name of the instrument on the case facing up. We're going to open up those latches and look inside. Okay? This is going to be a quick review because I know you've done this probably 100 times, but if it's been a while, this is probably a good review. The first thing we're going to do before we put any part of the instrument together is take our reed, and we're going to put our reed in our mouth. And that's because if our reed is dry when we go to play it, it's not going to play correctly and it could crack, and you don't want that to happen. So while you're taking the few minutes to put your instruments together, the reed should be in your mouth soaking up all of that saliva. I know that's kind of gross, but that's part of playing in band, right? Spit happens. So to start putting the clarinet together, we're going to take the lower joint in one hand and the bell in the other hand, and we're going to put them together. Now when we put them together, we're not going to scoop them together this way because that's not great for the clarinet. We're going to go straight in, usually up and down like this. When we grab the lower joint of the clarinet, we want to make sure that all these keys and rods are protected. If we grab our hand and grab real tight like this, we're going to bend those, and then the clarinet is not going to seal up correctly and it's going to squeak. So we want to make sure that we're holding the clarinet in such a way that our fingers got a nice tight grip, but we're not gripping on top of any of the keys. And we're going to use small wiggles to get the two pieces together, just like that. Okay? The next step is we'll grab the upper joint and we're going to do the same process. We're not going to scoop them together this way, we're going to land straight down. And we want to make sure, if you look closely at your clarinet, on the lower joint, you've got this piece here, which connects to this piece here. And this piece has to land right on top of that lower connector. And so when we put them together, we're going to line them up like that. And we'll grab up here at the top of the upper joint where there aren't any keys that we're going to mangle. And we're going to grab it down here at the bottom of the lower joint where there aren't as many keys. And we're going to do a small little wiggles to get them to fit together. And you know you've done it correctly when that connector lands right on top of the bottom piece. Okay? When you wiggle them together, don't use big wiggles. We're not going to grind it like this. And the reason is because these keys are going to hit each other. And if we're not careful, we're going to bend those keys. So we want to make sure that we're using little wiggles and not big wiggles. There we go. If it's been a while since you put your clarinet together, it might be wise to take a little bit of the cork grease that's included in your instrument and just use a little bit on each of the corks, and that'll help them seat together nice and easy. Okay, we don't want to overdo it on the cork grease. Okay, the next spot is the barrel. Barrel goes on top of the upper joint, and we're going to wiggle it together. No keys to worry about up there. And then finally, the mouthpiece goes at the very top, and we'll do little wiggles to get them together. If you need to rest the clarinet against your thigh to give some pressure to push, that's okay too. It's always good to use downward pressure. We don't want to push against our body this way, and we don't want to grab the keys real hard to push it together either. Downward pressure on your thigh is the safest way to do that. When we line up our mouthpiece, we want the opening at the top of the mouthpiece to land right at the top of this register key. That's the key that we're eventually going to be using with our thumb. That's our pointer key, and we line our opening of the mouthpiece right up with that key. Now, by this point, your reed should be nice and sticky because it's been in your mouth, and we're going to connect it to the top of our clarinet. And the way you're going to do that is take it out, take the bottom part, where it's written on, it'll say the company that made your reed, and it'll say the size of the reed. And we're going to do what I like to call lick it and stick it. We're going to lick that part just to get a little bit of moisture on it and stick it to the flat part of the mouthpiece. And it's going to stay there. Doesn't have to stay there very long, but it's going to stay right there. And that's going to help us put the clarinet together, because we know our reeds are so delicate and we don't want to touch the top part of our reed because it's paper thin. And if that gets chipped or broken in any way, the clarinet's not going to work. The last piece that we need to worry about is our ligature. Our ligature is shaped like a trapezoid. If you look at the cross section, that means the top diameter is a little bit smaller than the bottom diameter. So it's shaped kind of like this. It's not straight like a cylinder, it's got a taper to it. And so the bottom part that's wider is going to slide downward on top of our mouthpiece. And we're going to have the screws on the same side as the wood. And we're going to do that gently without touching the top of the reed. And we're just going to slide it on, just like that. Okay? The next thing is this delicate procedure where we have to line the reed up exactly in the place where it goes without touching the top. And I like to hold the clarinet here with this hand or this hand and use my thumbs down at the bottom to manipulate the reed so that I get it perfectly in line with the top of the clarinet. So we're going to wiggle the ligature a little bit. We'll use our thumbs down here, and we'll make sure that the crest of the reed perfectly lines up with the crest of the mouthpiece. If the reed is too low and you can look straight at it and see some black from the mouthpiece, that means it's too low. If you look straight at it and you see that the top of the reed is way above the crest of the mouthpiece, it's too high. So we've got to bring it down, and again, we're just using our thumbs, never touching the top of the reed. Once we've got it in the right spot, and that's the single most important thing about playing the clarinet, is that that reed has to be in the exact right spot. If it's not going to play for you. So take your time to make sure it's exactly located where it needs to be. And if it takes a couple tries, that's okay. You'll get faster at it as you go. But take the time to place the reed exactly in the right spot. Once you're sure it's there, we're going to take the top screw of the ligature and just tighten it up until it's snug. Then we're going to do the same thing to the bottom screw. Tighten it up till it's snug. The ligature should not move now. If you can push that ligature off with your thumb, it's not tight enough yet. So tighten up till it's snug. Don't over tighten because you could snap it. So tighten just till it holds it in place and you can wiggle it and it's not going to move. Now our clarinet is ready to play. And so we're going to hold it, and the very first note that we play on our clarinet is E. That means we're not using any of our right hand. Our right hand is resting down here on the thumb rest. And so let's get our thumb there now. And these fingers on our right hand are just going to hover above the keys. If we push any of them down, that's going to change the note that we're playing, and that's not what we want to do yet. We want to keep those fingers hovering. Up here at the top of the clarinet, to play the note E, we need our two left hand pincher fingers. Our thumb of our left hand goes on top of this key at the back of the clarinet, and make sure that you can feel the thick part of your thumb sink right into that hole and seal it up. If it's a little bit too low or a little bit too off to the side, air is going to leak, and leaks equal squeaks, and that's not what we want. We want to have a nice seal with the fat part of our thumb. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the front of the clarinet with our first finger, and we have our first hole right here, and that's where our first finger is going to go. Those are our pincher fingers on the top two holes on the back and the front of the clarinet. On the back here with our right hand, our thumb is resting, and that's the correct position to play our very first note in the book, which is note E. That's how we hold it. When we want to play the instrument, we want to make sure we are seated with our feet flat on the floor, our bottoms scoop forward in the chair so that our back is far away from the back of the chair. That way we can expand all the way around in every direction, and we don't get tempted to slouch like this. We keep our upper body straight, our shoulders are relaxed, and we're going to take a great big breath to play. Before we do that, we've got to get our instrument in place. So there are the first couple steps. Do you remember what they are from lessons? Let's review them really quick. The first step, take your bottom lip and fold it over your bottom teeth. Just like that. That creates a cushion so that your sharp bottom teeth don't start grinding into that reed. We don't want to eat the reed as we play. We want to make sure that there's a cushion there. That's step one, create that cushion. Step two, with that cushion in place, we're going to place the wood of the reed on top of our bottom lip. Now, how far into our mouth do we go? Well, we don't want to go too far and we don't want to do too little. We want to go about right in the middle of this top part of the reed. If we go all the way in, we're not going to have a very pleasing sound. If we are not far in enough, the reed probably isn't going to vibrate because we're squeezing against the tip too much. So we're going to go about halfway in. Just like that. The next step, first step is cushion, our bottom lip. Next step, place our reed on that cushion. The next step is very important. We're going to bite down on top of the plastic of our mouthpiece with our top teeth. Just like this. If we don't bite down, the reed is just going to float inside of our mouth. And we're not going to be able to control the reed or the vibration or the sound, and that's going to probably squeak on our instrument, and that's not what we want. We want to be able to control the vibration of the reed with our air, and we do that by getting a good grip in our embouchure. So make sure you are biting down with the top teeth. If you remember in lessons, sometimes when we play, I'll give the clarinet a little wiggle, and if I can wiggle it, it means we're not biting down with the top teeth. So step one, cushion. Step two, reed on the bottom lip. Step three, bite down with those top teeth. The last step is also important. We want to take our lips and seal around the whole mouthpiece so that no air escapes from the sides. Looks like this. Step one, cushion. Two, reed. Three, top teeth. Four, we're going to wrap our lips and tighten around the mouthpiece. Just like that. Okay? Great. Now we're ready to play our very first note. Here's the very important thing to remember about playing our first note. Every note that we start on the clarinet starts with our tongue touching the tip of the reed. If the tongue is low in the mouth and it's away from the reed, that's probably going to squeak when we try and blow air on it. We need to start every note with our tongue on the reed. And if you imagine that this finger is the tongue and you can see inside my mouth like an x-ray machine, the clarinet's resting in my mouth, my tongue is on the tip of the reed. And when I breathe in air, I wrap my lips around the top of the mouthpiece, and as I blow air out of my mouth into the clarinet, I'm going to pull my tongue off the tip of the reed. It starts on and off. And when I want to stop playing a note, I do the same thing in reverse. I take my tongue and I touch the tip of the reed with the tongue. And that starts the vibration and stops the vibration. And the way to remember that is if you think of the word to. When we say the word to, the tip of our tongue starts right behind our top teeth. There's a lot of T's in that, aren't there? And that produces our to sound. Now, we can't use our tongue against our top teeth when we're playing our clarinet because the mouthpiece is in the way. But our tongue, instead of touching the top of our back teeth, is actually going to touch the reed. Do you hear the clean beginning to every note? If I start a note with just blowing air into the instrument without my tongue on the reed, this is kind of what it sounds like. Do you hear how that squeak happens at the beginning? It doesn't give us a really pleasing sound. We want to make sure our tongue controls that vibration by starting it and stopping it in perfect synchronization with the air. That takes a lot of practice. And that's why we practice in our book our long tones, because it gets our air moving. It helps us practice keeping those notes steady for a long time, which we do with air. And it helps us really with good practice to start and stop every note with the tongue. So once we've got that, we are set. So let's play a first couple of notes. Remember, our thumb of our right hand is under the rest. Our top thumb of our left hand is on top of that hole. Sink into the hole, get a good grip. On the front of the clarinet, first finger sinks right into that hole. Fill up the whole gap so that there's no leaks. We're going to keep our upper body straight, shoulders back. Think of our steps to make our embouchure. Cushion, reed, teeth, and lips. The tongue is on the reed. We're going to take a big breath, and we're going to take our tongue off the reed at the moment we start the air. And we're going to hold that E. Ready? Let's go together. Sit up, cushion, reed, teeth, lips, tongue, big breath. Did you use the tongue to stop the air? That's the way to do it. Let's try it again. Cushion, reed, teeth, lips, tongue on the reed, great big breath. And tongue to stop the note. Let's do one more. Make sure you're sitting straight up and tall. The clarinet should not be straight out in front this way, and it should not be down this way. It should rest very naturally inside of your mouth. Make sure that you don't have too much mouthpiece in or too little. Let's go through the steps again. Grab our fingers in E mode, our pinchers. Cushion, reed, halfway in, teeth, lips, seal around the mouthpiece. Take in a great big breath, tongue on the reed, and we'll start that E. Once we're at that point, we're ready to go back to the other video. We're going to play through number 2 through 11 in our book, practice some long tones and warming up, and then we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.